Okay, in this video we're going to have a look at how to create times tables within Python. We're going to have a look how we could get our timetables to go up to a certain range. So we could show all the times tables up to 10, for example. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a program that asks the user to enter a number. It stores that number as times table, for example. It asks the user what number the times table to go up to. So for example, if we wanted to have all the times tables, let's say 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, etc., all the way up, including the answers, then we choose what the highest number it's going to go up to is. Store that as a number, and then loop until it reaches that number, and it prints out each of the tables. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Python, and we're going to have a look at how to create that. So open up your Python shell, then we're going to create a new document. Just save a copy of that. Now the reason you want to save it is because then it makes it a lot easier when you are trying to save it each time. So when you start to run the program, you need to make sure that it's saved. So I'm going to just call this times tables. Okay, so times tables. It's good to write a comment at the top just to say what this is for. This program is designed to print the times tables within a given range. Okay, now the first thing you're going to want to know how to do is how to actually create multiplication within Python. Now some of you might be familiar with this, some of you will not. So if I had number 1 and number 2, for example, I want to print out what the answer is to this. I don't want to print out number 1 or number 2, I just want to print out the answer. So I want to print number 1, and then to multiply, it's actually the asterisk symbol, which on my keyboard is Shift and 8, which gives me that asterisk, and then that is the symbol for multiplication. So I then multiply it by number 2. And then let's have a look and see what comes up. So you can see that I've got 6 has come up as my answer. This is very useful if you ever want to be able to just print the answer out for something. I could give this a variable, so I could say answer equals, and then I can actually print the answer instead, so that I have my own variable for it. So it does the same thing, but you've got a variable to control it, which makes it a little bit easier to manage it, and it means that you can then recall that information later on. So what we actually want to be able to do, I'm going to keep this because we're going to use that later, so I'm just going to enter it down a bit. These are the numbers that we're going to use. I'm going to change this from number 2 to range. Now I'm going to do capital R because, as you can see when I was typing that, when I type range, it actually turns purple. And the reason for that is it is a function within Python, and it's normally used for I in range as a loop that you can use. So that's why you need to have a capital, otherwise it thinks that it's a function. And functions cannot be named as variables because they already have a job. Okay, now let's get started with that first bit. So number 1 equals, and this is where we're going to allow the user to input their information. Please choose to use. Okay, so we're going to ask them to enter the times tables that they want to use. So for this example, we'll just stick with the 2 times table. I'm going to delete this and just put that to 0. That will be overwritten when I change this information here. So whatever the user enters here will then become the variable number 1, which is why it's called number 1. We then want range to be equal to another input. So you then say to the user, please enter the range for the times tables. And then we'll just put a space there just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to spread that out there as well. And then my close bracket there. So this will ask the user for what times table they would like, and then this one is to select the range that is going to go up to. So the highest number. It's then going to print out the answer. So let's test this and see how this works. So I'm going to do 2, and it should only print out 2 times, let's say 3. But we get an error. Now this error is at the moment saying because number 2 is not defined. That's because I haven't changed this one down here. So when you are changing the variable names, do make sure that you go back through your program and check that you have changed them elsewhere. And we'll get another error here. And this is a type error. This is basically meaning that you can't multiply by a non-int. So what's happening here is when you input information, it actually comes in as a string. So if we add a bracket here and type int, what that means is we can convert the data type into an integer, which is a whole number. So a whole number can be multiplied. Now this is called data casting, when you change the information. Now you'll get another error if you don't have your brackets lining up like so. So when you add a bracket, you should see that it kind of highlights this bit in grey. And the reason for that is brackets have to match each other. So this bracket and this one contain this information, and this one contain the information. You can't have a bracket without an ending bracket. Otherwise, it doesn't know where to close the bracket, and you can end up with errors in your program. So now let's do 2 and 3. Now, what's happening is it's come up with the answer, but we haven't got the print function here. So let's type print and answer here. Let's try it, and 2 and 3. Now we've got our answer here, which is 6. So we have successfully managed to multiply 2 and 3 using that user input. Now, it's not particularly exciting at the moment because you don't really want to have it where you just print one piece of information. We actually want it to allow us to go all the way from 0 up to 1 with this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to get it to multiply by a number up to the given range. So to do that, we're actually going to use a for_i in range function. So we're going to use for_i in range, like so. And what this will allow us to do is to go up to a certain range number. Now we're going to use this for_i in range, and we're going to just type the word range in this box here. And what that will mean is that it's going to allow this range to keep going up until it reaches that number. So for example, if I put 2 as the number here, it would loop this twice. Now if I did this here and I change this to an I, what this means is it iterates through. And iteration basically means it will change this number by the value of 1 each time. Just need a colon here and tab these across. What that will mean is it's going to loop this however many times we ask it to, and each time it's going to multiply this by 0 and then by 1, 2, etc. for whatever the range is. So let's try it. Let's say we want the 2 times table, and I want it to go up to 2 times 3. So it's got 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 2, and it's only gone up to 2 times 2, so it hasn't included the third one. Now there's a very easy way to fix that. You just do range equals range plus 1. So whatever the user enters here, we're going to add 1 more to. So for the I in range, this will then include the final value. So let's so we've done that. Let's just check again. So 2 and 3. So it includes 0, 2, 4 and 6. Now to make this a little bit more user friendly, it would look much better if we actually, instead of just have it print the answer, we have it print an actual equation. So it makes it a bit more user friendly. So let's get it to print number 1. It's going to then print just the symbol for times. I'm just going to use an X for this. I'm going to put a comma. And what this does is this is element number 1. It's then going to have the times, and then I want it to put I, like so, and then I'd like it to put answer. I'm also actually going to add an equals here, like so. So between each of these elements, I've got a comma, so it knows to print those out. I'm going to add a space between that one and that one, just to break it up when we're doing it. Now, when we run this, it should allow us to see the times tables in a nicer way. Just to make sure my brackets match. So let's do 2, and let's go up to 10 this time. Exit answer number is not defined. It's because I didn't put number 1. There we go. Okay, so 2 and 10. So you can see that this makes it much more user-friendly. You can see that it's got 2 times 0, 0, so you actually get your answers there. Now you could create this so that you could do multiple times tables. You could create this so that you could ask the user if they would like it to loop again. So if I wanted to do something like that, I could do while again equals true, like so. So while again equals, and we'll do a capital true, while again equals true, it will just loop. So I'm going to do again and call that true. Now the reason you want it to start with true is because otherwise your program isn't going to run the first time round. So while that's true, put a colon at the end there, and then if you select all of this, you can then hit the tab key and it will tab all of it across at the same time. And then we can actually have a little part here and call it, let's say, let's call it play again equals input. Then we'll say that would you like to create another times table, like so. So a little question mark there and a space, and then we can say if play again is equal to yes, for example, we can then get it to print maybe okay, or we could call it reset. We can just call it resetting. If we say elif, and this will allow the user to, if play again equals, let's say no, like that. I am going to add my string there just so that it recognises it as a string, because this should come back as a string because it's just a normal input. We'll do a print using this application, like so. Which is quite a nice way just to finish it. And then that will then change the value, because we're going to change again, and we're just going to say again equals false. Okay, and then that should end our application. You could also type break, which would actually break it out of its loop, so you wouldn't need it to loop it every time, as it were. So what will happen is it's going to loop this. Once that loop's finished, it's then going to go down to this information here. If I tab this across to there, this would then be included in that loop, which we don't want. So when this loop's finished, it then Python then reads to the left, reads this, and then it will go back to the left again at the end. And if there's nothing there, it just ends the program. But if this is resetting, it will then take us back to the top here, because it's still true, so it will just loop this again, because I haven't changed the value of it. You could, if you wanted to, make again equals true here, just to make sure that it does loop. You shouldn't need to, but you can. Another good idea is to put an else in here, and that is basically a way to capture any information to say invalid response. So we'll just say invalid response, let's say. Okay, so let's try it. So 2, go up to 10, goes all the way. Would you like to create another one? Yes, please. So resetting, and then they could do the 3 times table and 10. And then you can see that it's gone through, and this time it's created our new times table. So it is a way that it will keep repeating. And if I scroll down, you can see that it's asking me again. If I then choose no, it will then just say thanks for using this application, and then it exits out of it. So that's a very nice, easy way to create a simple times table system.